trust. And so we create the loan documents, we originate the loan as it's called, and we do that because we're licensed real estate brokers in California. We're able to do that. And then once the borrower goes in, signs the loan documents, the title company says, hey, we're ready for the funds, have your lender wire the funds. Our lender then wires the funds directly from their account to the title company. The title company records the deed of trust, and the money is dispersed to escrow. So it's a very straightforward transaction. It's done. It mirrors how a bank loan with B of A or Wells Fargo or RPM Mortgage would be done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the difference is the money comes from private individuals.
And
Now, I remember back in the 70s, even the 60s, when people were buying and investing in real estate, the banks, and there were no mortgage banks, it was just banks, they would never lend more than 80% of the value of the property. And so there were companies like yourself at the time who would lend more. I mean, I had friends who were investing in buying and remodeling, and they would go out and they would borrow money from these other companies for another 10%. And those companies were at the time charging 10 points and 10% for a 6-month loan.
To do seconds, you're talking.
seconds,
So they'd
yes.
go 10% behind an 80% loan for
Yeah,
a
so that
total of
90%
90%
Yes, and the
financing.
market was so strong, it was appreciating 1 or 2% a month, so they felt relatively secure, especially
Yeah.
because they were making so much money up front. But it's been a long, I mean, that industry is not a new industry.
Well, that's like the subprime industry. I mean, there is no more subprime, and that type of hard money loan doesn't really exist, at least not, I mean, there may be still people out there who might make that loan for you, but that's not
they're more
really-
like your equity partner at that point.
Yeah, or loan shark, you know,
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I want to quick one thing, because we may get an email on this. I want to stop it ahead of time so we can answer that.
Yeah.
You mentioned purchase money, and I think a lot of people might not know what purchase money is.
Well, if you're borrowing money to purchase property, we just generally refer to it in the business as a purchase money loan, as opposed to cash out refi. So there's really two types of loans. Either you're borrowing the money to help you buy real estate, or you're borrowing the money against real estate that you already own, and we make both of those types of loans.
Okay.
Now, up until the banks fell apart, that the mortgage banks and the bigger banks would lend up to 100%.
Oh, yeah.
All the liar loans where people would, if they could
Liar
fog the
loans.
mirror, they would get the loan, which was the
Right,
reason
the
that
stated
everything-
income liar loans.
Yes,
yeah.
the ninja loans, they call them. No income, no assets, no job, the ninja loans.
And that's one of the reasons why.
And
they
that's
collapsed
why,
of the market.
yeah, and when it all fell apart, and now we found that the values plummeted, and there were so many foreclosures for the first few years, and interest rates came down, but people couldn't qualify for a loan, that the IRAs and savings were earning less than 1% or virtually nothing. It made the kind of industry that you have really valuable for people to look around and get a secured investment and make, 800 times more than they could having it in a T-bill, or...
Yeah, something like that.
Well, savings, of course, is incredibly important for everyone right now, and and everyone's read articles about how the us baby boomers, most of us are not on track to retire successfully, and one of the reasons is because the stock market and real estate in the last 5 years, and then interest savings rates are pathetic. So trust deed investing has become more and more popular in the last 5 years, and as Robert, you were pointing out, it's a much different business today. We're not doing seconds. We're not charging 10 points. We're really we've filled that void that the banks left when they exited the real estate investor lending market. So
They're still secured loans. It's just
Right.
they're
and
a lot
these
more
are
conservative.
and they're on investment property versus owner occupied, because the banks right now, they've got a monopoly on owner occupied purchase loans and refi loans. I mean, that's their whole
For
industry
those
right
people that can qualify, and the qualifications for loans
That's
is
true.
really strenuous, and it's a full physical exam to go through a loan process
Well,
right now.
That's saying it nicely.
Yeah, you're mentioning, but it's funny. People were talking about investing and how much savings you should have. And some people say 6 months. And I thought, gosh, if I have 40 years worth saved up, then I'm okay, right? But that's a little hard to do. Okay. Well, Forget that. Well, forget what I just said. That's silly. All right,
I'm still
Robert.
thinking about that.
You're still thinking about that one. Okay, of course,
I'm waiting for the punchline.
waiting for the punchline. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Robert, here's the email we received for you. Nowadays, how many years tax returns do I have to show to get a loan?
Oh, well, that's, I can't say no like you did. That's not. No. As any question in the mortgage industry, the answer is, well, that depends.
Boy, that sounds like a politician to me.
But normally, if you're salaried, you would probably want to bring in the most recent year's tax returns. But if all your income is just from W-2 employment and you don't have any outside income, then 1 year would suffice. If you're self-employed or if you have other investments, whether they're partnerships or other corporations or other real estate, then probably the most recent 2 years tax returns.
Yeah, I thought they were always at 2 years worth.
If you're salaried and it's just W-2 income, then they always go to the IRS and have you sign a form that allows them to go to the IRS and check the last 2 or 3 years just to make sure that, in fact, you don't have any side income and everything you're saying is accurate.
Of course, what if you have only worked for that company for about a year? Isn't
What's
that a little nerve-wracking?
what's amazing, and it still is true, that if you're salaried, you can be, I had clients that were salaried and they went on unemployment, they lost their job and they stayed on unemployment for a year and a half and they got a job with another company, and all we need to see is one paycheck, and on that one paycheck they will base your income for
Wow.
a 30-year mortgage. Even if you're, say, 64 years old. So if you're W-2, and also if you're W-2, the banks will give you credit for your gross income.
Even though you can't spend your gross.
If you're
Yeah.
self-employed, they will look at your net income. So-
I would think that they would at least take the gross paycheck less the taxes that you have to pay.
If you're signed up for a $150,000 a year salary, that's your salary that you're qualified on. There's no
So you cheat the
deductions.
government out of all the taxes, but as long as you're paying your mortgage, you're
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, all right. And with that, we're going to go to our third and final trivia question commercial break. We all know Barry Bonds played with the Giants, but which team did he play for just prior to the Giants? So who traded him to the Giants? And we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Robert Schiff. When we cut to the third and final trivia question commercial break, we ask this question. We all know Barry Bonds played with the Giants, but which team did he play for just prior to the Giants?
Well, he came to Sir Francis Drake
Pirates.
area from the Pittsburgh
From the
Pirates.
Pittsburgh Pirates. That is correct.
That's right. I went to Drake High School, and our mascot was the Pirates.
There you go. Mark, you were off air kind of giving us some frustration about the
Sharing a little
mortgage industry.
frustration.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a 45.
He was sharing.
I was sharing it. Yeah, I had a 45-minute conversation this morning with a client, actually a lender client, who comes from the formerly a mortgage broker, and we were talking about some of the the news this week that we talked about just a little bit earlier in one of the earlier segments about how the banking industry is just now a whole new set, like 200 new regulations are coming on board, and this is after several years of new banking regulations getting piled on to the industry as a result of the subprime meltdown. And one of the biggest fallouts of this whole mess is that you've got the independent mortgage broker, the independent loan originator, has largely been shut out of the business. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people, formerly, independent mortgage loan originators that are out of a job right now because it seems to have all now been consolidated to within the banks and a few mortgage bankers. And it's really, and what's amazing about it is if you kind of go back in history, you got Barney Frank, who, along with a number of other politicians, kind of forced the banks in the late 90s through legislation and other means to start making certain types of loans that they were avoiding making. And as a
That's what you said before, and I didn't understand that.
Well, because everybody needs to own a house.
So the government was pushing
The government was
100% financing.
No. The government was pushing banks to approve more loans to people who may not have the means to necessarily repay those loans or even afford those loans. It was basically social engineering.
Try to find a way for people that might be too poor to be able to afford a house to get them to be a homeowner, so they would join in and be middle class. Is that it, or?
It was essentially to ease the credit restrictions, so that they made it so that whole easy credit, fog a mirror, get a mortgage in the 2000s. That all started as a result of political pressure on the banks to be able to increase home affordability. The goal was to increase the percentage of people who
but then
own
the
homes.
price of the houses went up so much.
The
Well, of
price of
course
the
it
houses
did.
and the banks, I don't know that they needed government pressure, because they were making fortunes off of
Well, of course they didn't need government pressure.
And they mostly were sold to the government, so the banks didn't have the liability of the bad loans they were putting out.
It's all Bush's fault.
Well, this started under Clinton. This started under Clinton, so this goes way back. And so you have all of a sudden you got easy money, and easy money turned into fueling price appreciation, and then all of a sudden everybody's owning homes. But really I didn't want to get too much into the detail of what happened in terms of the housing bubble, but post bubble, then you've got that same guy, Barney Frank, who with Senator Dodd passes all this new legislation that is, basically after the horses left the barn, we're going to fix this problem and make sure it never happens again. Well, really, all they did was pass a ton of new regulations, which, among other things, ended up really destroying the independent mortgage loan originator, so that...
Well, not just that, it hurt the homeowners, because there were people who really needed to get loans to save their house, and now they weren't allowed to.
Well, that's just
basically.
it. They made it
That's
very,
right.
very difficult to make loans to homeowners. They they killed the subprime industry and passed a number of new laws to prevent predatory lending. But it's the law of unintended consequences that generally comes into effect, and that is in their zeal to protect the homeowner from predatory lenders, what they've really done is they've destroyed and removed consumer choice. So
Throw out the baby with the bathwater.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so now you if you're looking to have to get a home loan, for example, RPM is one of the few independents out there remaining.
Well, we're a mortgage bank and
Yeah.
not a broker. And when I first joined RPM in the 90s, they were just a broker. And
Yeah.
as this started coming down, they were prescient enough to realize that they needed to exist. They would have to be a mortgage bank also, and not
Yeah.
just a broker.
Where do they get their money?
They have to have a bunch of money so that they can show that they're stable enough, and then they can get lines of credit from, before the bubble burst, it was Wall Street. And they got all their money from Shearson Lehman from Wall Street, and that's starting again. Otherwise, they will get their loans and they will sell them to different banks, Chase or GMAC, or primarily to Fannie and Freddie.
Yeah. So great weekend for sports in the Bay Area. Now that our show is starting to wind down, we didn't want to tell people too early to
That means
Oh.
not in. That means one
Wind down for the day.
For the day, yeah.
For the day, yeah,
We're
yes.
still- don't worry,
Yeah.
don't worry,
No,
fans.
we'll
We're
be-
still on.
We'll be back next week. But yeah, we've got the two baseball teams, the A's and the Giants in the playoffs this evening. We got 49ers about to start. We got America's Cup. They're out there sailing around.
I like what Robert was saying off air, is that the A's, the only time that they led
That's
the
amazing.
division
They
was
were in
the-
first
they were in
place for one day of the year, and that was
Well,
the
the most
last
important day.
The last day of the year.
What
That
were
was
they,
a great
they were,
game.
13 games back?
That was a record.
Yeah.
There were 9 games out with 5 days left, I think.
Well, you had
Five games out with 9 days left.
Well, you had the
That sounds
Brooklyn
right.
in 1951. The Giants came back against the
Yes.
Dodgers, and it was just some ridiculous comeback that they had. But poor Josh Hamilton, man, he's just going to be living that thing
That
down for a
was
long
amazing.
time.
Yeah.
I think that's going to affect them throughout the entire playoffs.
Yeah, and then you got the Fleet Week. You got the Blue Angels in town.
Well, they have 1 day of the playoffs, which was by airtime was already over. So
Well, that's
the
true,
Texans,
but I mean, just in
Yes.
general.
Oh, yeah, through the whole off-season, yes.
But like you said, you got the Blue Angels.
Blue Angels, there's a free concert going on in Golden Gate Park. I mean, it's a great weekend.
America's
for,
Cup won the Bay.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
amazing.
All kinds of stuff. So,
So traffic-wise, it's going to be very interesting.
yeah, I would not be trying to go into the city right now if I were you.
Okay. Now, did the Raiders? Did we figure out if the Raiders?
I don't
were
think
playing?
I
they're
don't
play-
know the Raiders are. I think they're
The
away.
Niners are home, Giants are home, A's are home.
Wow, that's a lot
Wow,
of
that's a lot of
busyness going on.
sports.
Yes,
yes.
Sunday is going to be sitting on the couch watching sports all day. I'm going to get fat and lazy on Sunday and just really enjoy this little Bay Area moment.
How's your family deal with that? Are they okay with it?
Sunday is Daddy Day.
Oh, lucky! I want to come to your house.
Well, and luckily it's not, well, who knows what the weather will be, but it's not probably going to be 100 degrees like it was last week.
Well, actually,
so,
there is TiVo too, and I'm a big fan. I may actually TiVo some sports and go.
That's
have
kind
a
of
look.
hard. That's for me. That's kind of hard to do.
Every
You can't
time
listen to the radio. That's
Yes.
the trick.
Yeah.
Or go into a public place where they're talking about. Oh,
Don't tell me! Don't tell me!
But that, when you go watch the replay on TV and you've T-voted, I know this happened to me a bunch with tennis, and just that 1 second where you turn on the TV before you can get to TV and they say,
You have to hit the mute
And-
button really quick.
yeah, they say, yeah.
Wait a minute. Did you say you TiVo tennis?
Yes.
Oh, you're not well.
That's almost like TiVoing hockey or curling. Or
Oh, no,
I'm
curling.
teasing. I mean, tennis is a fun sport.
When
It's
you
a-
TiVo a football game, I mean, you can just blast through that. It's great.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
with
yeah.
commercials and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even the time between plays. I mean, it's just, you just fast forward between.
That's
it's just
true.
amazing.
Then
to
you
go
miss
through.
all the talk of all the announcers.
Well, some of those guys are.
But unless you're listening to us, it's not interesting,
true.
right?
Yeah.
On
yeah.
that. All right. Any last words before we have to cut out here, guys?
Well,
Well, it's going to be interesting next 30 days with the election coming up. There's going to be a lot of political
and
maneuvering.
gas
and
prices and all
gas
that.
prices are
the
heading
uncertainty is really stunning right now. There's so much uncertainty in the financial and other markets based on who's going to win and what's going to happen with tax planning. This whole fiscal cliff everybody keeps talking about. So yeah, it's really going to be interesting.
Well, I'm hoping next week to get an attorney on who knows about taxes. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about tax.
There's
planning.
going to be big changes in taxes at the end of the year, huge changes that for estate planning. I mean, in fact, people really should be aware
So
and
tell
start
people-
making plans.
Hear it.
before-
You heard it first on the
Yes.
Best of Investing,
Right,
right?
and so you've got the unemployment rate that went down, good for Obama. You've got stocks are up, good for Obama. Gas prices about to hit $5 a gallon,
Bad
not
for
so
Obama.
good for Obama. So all kinds of interesting
The
things.
stock
going on.
market's at the highest it's been in 4 years. Interest rates are the lowest, and the government's saying they'll stay
But I
down
hate
that way for a
$5
long
gallon
time.
gas.
Oh, that's
Makes me
terrible.
mad.
Me too. Okay, thoughts for the day. When sign makers go on strike, is there anything written on their signs? And my dad taught me how to pick out ripe avocados. He said they should be a bit soft. So if I found a hard one, I kept throwing it on the ground until it softened up. I still can't figure out why they didn't taste good. And with those words of wisdom, we ask you to tune in, or invite you, I guess, to tune in to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.